Until the Pelicans fix their clutch performance, nothing else they do will matter. Here's how they can add 5 or more wins in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Monday, we are tipping off a week's worth of shows for y'all, and we're going to focus on clutch performance for New Orleans. Late game situations. It has not been good. This is maybe the easiest way where they can make a significant improvement from years past. We'll explain what they need to do and why it matters so much, as well as the numbers from years past that not great. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, so visit FanDuel.com or FanDuel's app today and start planning your futures bets now. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget, you can watch Locked On Pelicans on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. right now. Same place you watch your Pelicans play. So let's get into this one here. Clutch struggles. And this is something the Pelicans, under head coach Willie Green, which is all we're going to look at here, have not been great. You know, the Pelicans have consistently underperformed in clutch situations. That's the last 5 minutes of a game with the score within 5 points. So you're either down by 5 or fewer or up by 5 or more, or 5 or fewer. That's what it is. Those are considered clutch situations. Final 5 minutes of the game, the score within 5. I'm going to go through the numbers here for y'all. It's not great. In 2021-2022, Willie Green's first year, the Pelicans went 14-18 in clutch situations. That was 25th in wins. They did have the 5th best offensive rating, but 30th in defensive rating. That was a net rating of 21st. In 22-23, 17-20. That's 22nd in clutch wins, just amount of clutch wins. 6th in offensive rating, 7th in defensive rating, and a net rating of 5th. So that was good. 23-24, they were 14-15, so barely a losing record. 27th in wins, 26th in offensive rating, and 20th in defensive rating. It was a net rating of 24th. And then last year, in 24-25, they were 17-20. That's 25th in wins. So they've been in the bottom 5, basically 3 out of those 4 years, bottom 10 every year. 19th in offensive rating, and I lost their defensive rating number here. I have the number it was, but I don't have the actual. It was not good. And they had a net rating of 14th, so about middle of the pack. This comes to an overall record under head coach Willie Green of 62-73. So a 46% winning percentage. That's not great. And it gets even worse when you factor in that 23-24 season when the Pelicans won 49 games. They were 0-24 when trailing after the third quarter. They did not come back and have a fourth quarter comeback whatsoever. You can still end up in, clutch situations when you were winning the game going into the fourth quarter and then, potentially lose it too. But 0-24, we all know that number. We've talked a lot about that over the years here on Locked On Pelicans when it comes going into the fourth quarter, right? Like, this is a systemic issue, it feels like at this point. The team struggles to execute when it matters most. And in a very competitive Western Conference, these late game failures can make the difference between making the playoffs, missing out, or maybe making the play-in tournament and missing out on the actual postseason here. So if the Pelicans really want to be a playoff team, a play-in tournament team this year, you have to win these games, or at least improve in that. If you bump that 46% up to a 55 winning percentage, so like barely above 500 here. That adds in the 4 years about a little over 12 wins. So it's about 3 more wins per season. If you go back to that year they won 49 games. I actually don't know if this would have mattered or not, but let's take a look in real time here. Let's come on a journey with me in the NBA. When the Pelicans finished 7th, got in through the play-in tournament, only to get swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round. If you had, this would have mattered. If you had 3 wins to that 49 wins, it puts you at 52 wins. That would have been the 4th seed in the playoffs. That would have been the 4th seed. Think about that for a second, right? Like that all of a sudden changes things pretty dramatically, in my opinion. They would have played the Dallas Mavericks in the first round, a team that they had done pretty well against that year. So this is something where they just flat out have to be better in this, right? And look, we'll get into ways they can improve. And one of the things I'm going to say in that segment is health. A lot of this has to do with health and just not having your guys available. When you have one offensive threat late in games, you become very easy to defend. And we'll talk a little bit about isolation scoring in the next segment here. You need guys that can do that, right? When you look at players on this team that are good ISO scorers, it's Zion Williamson, maybe Jordan Poole, but I'll mention him in the next segment, maybe Dejounte Murray. But overall, they haven't had those guys, right? Brandon Ingram, if he was your only guy because Zion would be injured, it's much easier to defend him and you can throw 2 at him. You need 2 good bucket getters basically out there on the court and not like off-ball good spot up shooters like a Trey Murphy is, or a CJ McCollum more was. You need guys that can just go and get their own buckets. And the Pelicans haven't had that. And when Zion's out injured, I got a stat about him for y'all in the next segment that you're not going to want to miss when it comes to clutch situations. You're going to lose games. So a lot of this, I think people are going to rush to kind of like condemn Willie Green. And I don't think part of it's on him. Their offense has gone stagnant. You see the turnovers. You see a lack of ball movement. That's part of the problem. The turnovers go up in the fourth quarter for New Orleans compared to other quarters. Yeah, you're going to lose games if you're basically having nothing on one end and gifting a turnover to the opponent for them to get out and run. Like that's not a great position to try and be in. So you need to figure this stuff out. Otherwise, anything else they do isn't going to matter. Whatever player you get that could elevate you, unless he's like an elite clutch scorer, which like they're not going to find that kind of guy for this team, it's not going to matter. Because if you upgrade the center position, but you can't run an offensive set late in the game, who cares who your center is at that point in time? If you add a guy to a team that can unlock your squad, but you're disorganized, no one knows what to do late in games, and you can't get a bucket when it matters most, look, even if you make the playoffs, you're going to lose. So this needs to get fixed. Otherwise, anything the Pelicans do, youth movement, established guys, win now, win later, whatever it might be, right, isn't going to matter in terms of making the playoffs. You have got to figure out these clutch situations and improve in that way. Otherwise, you will miss out on the playoffs. There's other things they need to do too. But this for years, has been a big problem for the team. And it's going to be on the coaching staff and these players to get this fixed this year. Otherwise, basically the season's over before it already began. And I don't actually think that it is. So how do they improve? How do you turn it around? Let's talk about that. And I got a great Zion Williamson stat for you coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th, mark the day. It's officially FanDuel's Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches for just 24 hours limited. FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL preseason predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or just ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Taking Lamar Jackson, plus 400 for the MVP looks really good to me. Look, give me the Eagles at plus 700. There's no reason not to take them just to win the Super Bowl. You can also parlay all of these, or even with division winners, with long odds, get a bigger payout, whatever you're looking to do. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only over at FanDuel. Play your game. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully tomorrow or the day after, I'll have the fan survey out for y'all. We'll be using this for probably a whole week's worth of content. I'm still kind of refining the questions that I want to put in front of y'all, but I want to hear from you and what matters to you, how you're feeling about the team. We will discuss it here on the show. It's a great way to have input on Locked On Pelicans. Make your voice heard here. And of course, for your second listen, Spencer Rattler looked good on Sunday. Ross Jackson is going to tell you if the QB battle is done or still wide open between him and Tyler Shook. That's over at the Locked On Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Pelicans, not great in clutch situations, to put it mildly, or even like late game situations, fourth quarter situations. Again, 2 years ago, and the best year they've had in a while, 49 wins, going 0-24 when entering the fourth quarter. 3 more wins, just 3 more wins, would have made them the 4th seed and maybe changes the outlook of this Pelicans team and how it is. Maybe then Zion doesn't get hurt in the play-in tournament game that year and can play in the first round, and we'd finally have the option to see playoff Zion Williamson. So how do you get better in late game situations, right? It starts with like strategy, mindset, and the players that you have available. And let's start with the players. This is important. Just be healthy. Being healthy will make this team better. And it starts with Zion Williamson. I actually pulled the individual numbers for him. Under head coach Willie Green, the Pelicans have a winning record in clutch games when Zion plays. He misses so much time that the overall numbers are really, really skewed against this team. We just went over them, right? But when Zion plays, they have a winning record in clutch situations. If you're looking to get closer to 55%, 60% in clutch games, Zion simply being available is really, really going to do it. In late game situations, it does kind of become an isolation individual style of play. It's where Zion succeeds, right? This is someone who scores at a high rate at the rim, can get there at ease, and if you throw 2 bodies at him, someone is going to be open then. 3 bodies at him, 2 players are open. That's the best way. There's an archetype you look at in the NBA that's kind of general, in my opinion, called an advantage creator. You could be doing that through your shooting, your drive and kick game, just an elite player around the rim. Whatever it is, it creates an advantage for the offense by drawing 2 to the ball. This is something we're going to look at a lot this season. Zion is an advantage creator, right? You don't need to be a traditional pass-first point guard to create for others. Do you have court gravity? That'll do it. Are you an elite shooter? That means someone is glued to you on the perimeter. That's going to be an advantage creator. It can be a variety of different types of players, but it's an archetype that's just kind of overarching with all of this. Zion is an advantage creator. Having him in the fourth quarter available to play would massively help this team. The injuries have been what's derailed them in Willie Green's tenure. While I think they can, Willie Green has a lot of faults, and if they make a change there, they are more than justified in doing it. We also have not just been able to see him coach for multiple seasons a fully healthy roster and what it's capable of doing. This might be, why the Pelicans are still keeping him, because they kind of want to still give Willie Green a test run, because who actually knows right now? Because of all of the injuries. Having an isolation player in Zion Williamson with complementary players like Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and others out there will go a long way towards winning games and improving in the clutch. And that's a way for this team to add 5+ wins to their win total when healthy. That changes your outlook for the playoffs when it comes to everything. You're going to need guys like Trey Murphy III to grow as an isolation scorer. When I talked about this last week, the week before, when we were looking at him in comparison to Kevin Durant and where he can grow, it was isolation scoring to just be that go-to bucket getter. He can improve in that area. And if he does, he becomes Kevin Durant-like, light, one of the two. And that'll help the Pelicans in clutch situations too, I think. Dejounte Murray is a good clutch player in terms of like points scored. He does it in volume. He can get a bucket late in games. That was one of the reasons they traded for him just, a little over a year ago. And then that was just derailed for a number of, injuries again this season, right? Everything he was dealing with off the court. But if you need a guy that can help you get a bucket, Murray can do it. So now you have Zion, you have Murray, you maybe have it in Murphy. That's a really, really good start to being able to get out there and then just have dudes that can score. It's also going to allow you to utilize pick and rolls a little bit more effectively. Maybe make the most of someone like Eve Misi or Kevon Looney as your center and really integrating them a little bit more in the offense. If Murray is driving to the basket and drawing two to the ball, the center might be open. Just loft the ball up to him and let those guys flush it down. You're making the game easier for those other players to go out and have a very, very positive impact. Right? It's not rocket science sometimes of like, how can the team be better? Win close games. And these guys being healthy is just easily going to do that sort of thing. And so that's where we're really looking for that here. When it comes to Jordan Poole, right? I didn't mention him yet. And I want to mention him now because it's a bit of a reality check. I like Jordan Poole. I think he's going to be a good player for this team and really help them in this kind of, just overall. I think he makes sense. But a little bit of a reality check with him. Jordan Poole is not a proven clutch player. He can be a good isolation scorer, but he does not do it in the clutch. Going back to Washington and then 2 years with the Wizards, he was not good in clutch situations whatsoever. His shot selection isn't great, and then his turnover rate in the final 5 minutes of close games has been really, really inconsistent. So if you're relying on him to be a primary option in crunch and clutch situations, crunch and clutch are used interchangeably here. Kind of risky, right? This goes back to when I did the show of like, what does a successful season look like for, all of the players here? And we talked about Jordan Poole, and it was embracing a different role. Poole is more of a supporting complementary type of player rather than kind of forcing isolation plays late. You want that to go to Zion Williamson, Murray when he comes back, whatever his impact is going to be, and then ideally Trey Murphy as well. And you want Poole to be the third and or fourth option, something along those lines when it comes to him. He'll get his shots in clutch situations because Zion Williamson is going to create good ball movement for this team. It's going to help improve the shot selection for this team, and Poole can really fit into all of that as well. They need to get better defensively too. Looking at those numbers that I told you in that first segment, the defense has not been great in terms of net rating. They were 30th one year, 20th the other. They had one good year of good defensive rating in clutch situations. They've got to be better about limiting opponents' threes and being smart when it comes to switching. You've at times seen them get a little bit lost, or teams are playing really fast and the switching scheme doesn't quite work. Having Herb Jones out there and Murray eventually out there, those two together will really help that. You have a wing defender, you have a point of attack defender. I do think that will go a very long way towards helping this team improve in this type of situation too. And look, one of the biggest things is going to be experience when it comes to this, just kind of building off all of this. And the Pelicans have not been able to do that because guys are just in and out of the lineup. While Zion has a winning record in clutch situations, do you trust him in a clutch situation? Has he done it enough? Have you seen it enough, even recently? And the answer is kind of no when it comes to this sort of thing. But this is, one of the more important areas that I think they can improve. And it's going to be on head coach Willie Green figuring out the best way to use his players, getting their buy-in in case of Jordan Poole and the like to, buy into a slightly different role than what they've played with before. Those are the type of things. If teams are doubling Zion, does everyone know how to move the ball and be ready for that kick out from Zion Williamson? If you can build all of that in, you're going to just be a much better team that's capable of winning more and more games. And the Pelicans are going to need to take, they need every advantage they can get because they're they are going into this season as massive underdogs. But trying to also then get kind of the mental preparation, right? Being prepared for it, having set plays for final possessions, having accountability for players. All that's going to really matter in clutch situations. But truthfully, just guys being healthy is going to make the biggest difference more so than anything else. Hopefully they can do it this year. They can't be as bad as they have been in years past. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. So coming up next, I want to get into a little bit more of like why this really, really matters here. And there's a couple of other things too that comes to all of it here. So let's break that down. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. That was the wrong button. Where is my, there we go. Coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Still preseason. Still off season, not even preseason. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And don't forget, you can watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. and right now 5:30 p.m. as well. Double showing of Locked On Pelicans on there, along with Locked On Saints in the morning, Locked On LSU, and Locked On SEC from 10 to noon. You got a 2-hour block of Locked On the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Same place you watch your Pelicans play. Get ready for the season. Schedule's out. So start making sure you know where that channel is. Like I said, still off-season, preseason for me as we're kind of gearing up into form as I'm pressing the wrong buttons here when it comes to all of that. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no off-season in the association. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date. Contract negotiations, rumors, everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we've been talking about clutch situations for the Pelicans where they really struggle with this. Being kind of drilled into all this, having guys healthy, practicing set plays just so people aren't freelancing and then making bad passes, turnovers because guys aren't on the same page. That I think will go a long way towards helping this team improve, right? This is something they absolutely need to focus on. This is an easy way to add 5 or more wins to their win total this year, whatever that is going to end up looking like. They need to do this. If they don't win close games, nothing else is going to matter. It doesn't matter the players they're going to add, the roster changes, who the head coach is, though that maybe, impacts all of it. None of that is going to matter if you can't close out games. And look, maybe you win a bunch of games. You're so good you get into the postseason and you don't even need to worry about many clutch situations. So if you lose them, who cares on the way there? Now you're a top seed. Look, you're going to have close games in the playoffs. And that's not something that you can afford to drop. You need to be ready for that. The playoffs also mirror a little bit late game situations where it's often very isolation heavy style of basketball because teams are really scheming and game planning in a way that you don't see. So this is not only important for wins in the regular season, but being prepared for the postseason. But winning close games can lead to more winning. Winning close games builds momentum and confidence, right? It's going to improve your playoff positioning too. But if you're closing out games, you feel unstoppable. Look at the way guys go nuts after they hit a game winner or one of their teammates hits a game winner, particularly if it's like a well-designed play or a really good isolation scoring opportunity. That's the type of thing that just builds confidence in a team that they can go out and win. And when you are winning, basically every problem is solved. Guys are happy, they're having fun, fans are happy, people are showing up. It's this type of thing that like snowballs all of a sudden. The vibes are good, you're moving up in the standings when you're just winning. You don't hear bad things, you don't hear players-only meetings, you don't hear rumblings about guys want to get traded. It's all good. Winning fixes that. And on the flip side, right, conversely of this, if you continue to lose clutch games, even with a fully healthy roster, right, pressure starts to mount. The vibes get bad. Losing, I have long said, the everydayers have heard this, losing is a disease that just permeates every part of your organization and just brings the whole building, the whole room down. You need to avoid that this year because, look, you don't have a pick next year. You don't have a choice but to be good this year, right? And if you just start losing, that can snowball in a very negative way for this team. Guys don't trust their teammates all of a sudden then that's when you're going to see Jordan Poole just taking over games, having a higher usage rate than maybe you think that they should have. all of that is not going to be a good thing for New Orleans. They need to really make sure they get off to a good start. And you're going to be in a couple close game situations. And if you can win those versus losing them, maybe you start 500 versus 1-9. Start 5-5. That is going to be a massive difference maker for the outlook of the team this year. They need to do that, right? So all of a sudden you start winning. And now this is a talented young team again. The narrative flips. You can win those NBA Cup games that I think are going to be a really good litmus test for them, right? Clutch performance is just, going to tell you a lot about this team being ready for the postseason. So if the Pelicans want to contend, you're going to need to win close games. You need to win them at a 55% rate or higher, in my opinion, or at least 500. But the higher, the better. And I do think having a healthy Zion Williamson, if you have a healthy Zion Williamson, because it's not a guarantee, that's going to be the biggest difference maker this team can get. That kind of surprised me that when I looked it up, that they have a winning record in clutch situations under head coach Willie Green when Zion plays, and a massive losing record when they don't. They already have a losing record overall. But when Zion plays, they win their games. It's about a 55% rate. That's the number that you're looking for. That's kind of the target that you're looking for. That's what this team needs. Health more than anything is going to help that. Can you just bank on the health? That's maybe one of the, it's always with this team. If they're healthy, they can be good. Kind of what it comes down to, even with clutch situations. You think they're going to be better in the clutch this year? Do you have faith in head coach Willie Green, James Borrego, Jaron Collins to all do that? Let me know what you think in the comments down below on YouTube. And that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I appreciate y'all so much for listening, and I will be back with y'all tomorrow. We got the fan survey coming soon. If there's a question you've got, throw it in there. We'll maybe put it in there. Give me your fake trades as well. We're going to grade some fake trades coming up this week. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see y'all next time.